There might be 5 podium spots in a sea of 400 age groupers. But the competitor that you're going against is that past version of you. That version of you that couldn't swim. That version of you that was terrified of the water. That version of you who only had one speed a few years ago, or maybe even a few months ago. That's who you're feeling confident about. But to stand in that line and to walk down to the water and to be excited to jump in because that the first time your toe hits the top of the surface, game is on. And you love it.
Good morning, my man.
Hey man, happy Thursday. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm fired up.
Fired up? Oh, fired up for what? I need to make sure that I got my game face on if you're fired up and ready to roll this morning.
No, I've just been getting up a little earlier.
I noticed
Uh,
that little email, but you like to trick us sometimes, and you especially like on Facebook. These people think that when you have something that like releases on Facebook, like in our closed Crushing Iron closed Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron group on Facebook, if you want to search that, they think that you're like up and at them, but you pulled like a very, very efficient, predated release. But still, this morning I found when I got back from my run, what seemed like a fresh fresh in my inbox email from Mike Riley and like with an 8 in front of it, like an eight-ish. So eight-ish for me was what, seven-ish for you? Is this true?
yeah, it's true. Yeah, I usually do. I will schedule releases sometimes on Facebook, but I'm sitting there, at 2 a.m. going, yeah, I'll just release this in a few hours. I'd rather release it at 6 a.m. than 2 a.m.
This is
Although
true.
we have that worldwide audience,
We
you never
we
know
do
when people are going to
occasionally.
read stuff. People can't sleep and they're fidgety now in these times.
I know.
Or are
Which
they
is why
more
I like
relaxed?
you,
I'm in a
you
weird place with this stuff, dude. I'm just thinking there's a big part of me that's like, man, I wish the season was rolling. I mean, there seems like there'd be a whole lot more energy or whatever, but there's also something really to be said for this slower pace. And I know a lot of people are struggling and there's a lot of crap going on, so I don't want to like glamorize it or anything, but it really does slow you down. And I don't know. There's something cool about that to me.
I agree, and I'm not going to harp on it a lot, but I think there's always, and I just appreciate the fact that you're finding a positive in this, and so many people are, I think, finding positives in this. It's not ideal in a lot of scenarios, but I've had so many athletes and friends and family just be like, man, and myself, like as much as like I've missed, like I would be getting packing up this coming weekend and heading off to Ironman, Texas for our first big team race of the year, and then we had to reschedule and postpone our swim camp this next month. Like I miss those things. Like I really miss seeing our athletes and competing and being at race day and just the energy and watching everything come together and just the overall experience. But man, it's like I have really enjoyed most of being home and relaxing. Our toddler sometimes makes that challenging, but it's the I think the stress that travel puts on you is tremendous. And so yeah, I feel like it's slowed down a lot. I've appreciated it. And we appreciate you, our listeners, for tuning in. It's the Crushing Iron podcast. I believe we are episode 365.
Yeah,
Yeah,
365. Mike Riley
360.
was the last one.
Micro was our last one. And I just want to say, obviously, if it's your first time tuning in, you might not understand this, but I just want to say thank you to all of our listeners for the feedback that they've given us over the last few weeks. And we've had a couple of emails, Facebook messages, and comments in our closed group. And we just appreciate it. And I think, I know for me specifically, it's been a little bit more challenging to produce the podcast. And I know that we've probably had a couple podcasts in general, especially the last 3 or 4 weeks, that I think I've been cutting out a little bit, so I just want to apologize for that. But hey, we're making the best we're doing the best we can, especially on mine. Allie and I are both still working full time, and so when we're producing this podcast, I'm usually sucking up the Wi-Fi, and then she's actually working on her laptop, taking the Wi-Fi, and then that means we have to keep Hayden busy. So sometimes you might get a little bit of a cutout. So I apologize, but we're doing the best we can. So I just wanted to say thanks and appreciate all of your patience. Thank you for the feedback that we got on the Mike Riley podcast. Um, it was probably one of my favorites. Not just for like the conversation and I think what it meant to so many athletes, but the the opportunities that I think we all have to just connect whenever we want. I know a lot of podcasts that are out there. They do predominantly interviews, like they always have a different guest on, and we obviously rarely do that. And so it's sometimes kind of nerve-wracking to have that, but it's just fun to be able to, you said like you're enjoying the downtime in the sport. Well, if there was this downtime, we never would have gotten an email from Mike Riley that was like, "Hey guys, I got some time to kill. You would love to be on the show. How about it?" And we're like, "Sure. How about next Monday?" Which is like 3 days, 3 days later, and we can just connect and chat and hopefully do something good for the sport and do something good for our listeners. So I've been enjoying it. It's have had its challenges, but I wanted to say thank you to our listeners and for tuning in. And hopefully today we can provide you with another bright spot in your day.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you pointed that out because that thing with Mike Riley to me was sort of like, and we chatted a little bit before that, right before he got on, and I kind of was laughing about it. It's like, man, thinking back to when we started and, because we'd go to all these races back in the day before we were podcasting. Of course, Mike Riley was a household name even then, and, arguably the most recognizable name in triathlon. And here we are just kind of hanging out doing our little podcast. And it just sort of shows you that, sticking with things and being consistent, then they just sort of happen. We didn't expect that to happen as much as we maybe wanted. Like when we started the podcast, we were kind of thinking, oh, we have a podcast and people are going to want to be on here and blah, blah, blah.
Or we have to find all these people to be on here.
Yeah, exactly. And then the idea that we thought that was a big deal. I guess the point is sort of in an analogy form again. It's like I think the podcast to me is always a great analogy as far as just being consistent with something and just it's sort of like we want things to happen quickly, but they can happen if you just have patience and just stick with it. And this is like sort of or instead of like seeking everything out and chasing everything all the time, we just sort of organically did it the way we want. We go about it the way we want, and it keeps it enjoyable for us. And things have worked out over the time. It's like now I'm like, okay, Mike Riley wanted to be on the podcast. I'm sure a lot of people would be open to it, and that just sort of happened. It was because we put in the time and the work, and that's the thing that can happen if you put in the time and work with swimming, for example.
My favorite topic, maybe my favorite topic of all time, and I think some of our
That's what they say.
some what it is. What are you laughing at?
Well, I'm just saying,
It's
it is. It
it
is. I
is.
know it is. You're like when I
You
watch
know
you go
this.
on the swim. Yeah.
Like you know this. Like when we have our camps and our triathlon camps and our swim camps. Like swimming is one of those things like that I could, if I'm ever to be an extrovert, it's when I'm talking about swimming. I could talk about swimming for hours and hours and hours. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about. I grew up, as a little bit of a background, like I grew up swimming year round for here, well not here in Chattanooga, but in Nashville for Excel and for NAC, which are two really, really, really good um, club team, swim year round. Quit when I was 16 because I was just frankly just like totally burnt out. Hated it. Swam summer league. Still had a great time, but I grew up swimming. Like it was my life and blood. I swam year round, obviously until high school. And so it's something I've always done. I feel I'm more home in the water than I do on land. It's just something I'm very, very comfortable with. And then had a layoff for a long period of time, and then I think one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about swimming is because I've tasted and felt what it is to feel so fast in the water. When I was younger, and then even growing up, like some of my better times were, I would do hundreds that were under 60 seconds. I was a backstroker, but then I also know what it's like to struggle to find your way back. And I think so. A couple of things, like so, I swim year round growing up. Was very accomplished swimmer, ranked nationally. Always did well in Southeasterns, and then obviously I went to high school. I quit. I went to college, And then I found myself like fairly overweight for my size. Like I was about 225, 230. And I just
Yeah.
my mom,
Sucks.
this is back when I was kind of like drinking and eating like crap. And as before, I was like, hey, you know what? Giving him drinking was probably like the thing I should do to like change my life. I was like, you know what I need to do? I need to eat healthy. I need to get into like a sport. And so I had a friend that was kind of like, hey, you should get into triathlon. And I was like, sure. I don't even know what this is. This is back in, let's see, this is like 2002. And I was like, sure, I feel like I can do that. Swam year round. This is nothing. Like I'm sure I can hop in the pool and do a couple thousand. It's just like riding a bike. Like I got this. So I walked in the Concord Road YMCA. I remember this was plain as day. I walk in the Concord Road YMCA. I'm wearing these, which I still deem are very fashionable, navy cargo swim shorts, and hop in the pool. And I did a 25, and I came back to the end, completing my first 50, and I thought I was gonna die. I was so gassed. I was so immensely out of shape. I was toast. I got out of the water. I grabbed my towel. I went back to the locker room, dried off, and left. I was that gassed from what was, over, see, I was 21 at that point. So it was like 6 to 7 years of just like no swimming at all. I still knew what to do, but I just had zero fitness, and I was obviously super out of shape, and it was super overweight for me. And I almost packed it in, but I was like, I can come back and do this. And so I know what it's like to be fast, and obviously I worked my way back up, and I consider swimming is definitely my strongest. But I know what it's like. I know what it feels like to feel fast and feel accomplished and feel comfortable in the water, but I also know what it feels like to struggle and to feel like, how am I ever going to make it, 800 meters or a half mile or a mile or 1.2 or 2.4? Like, how in the world am I going to do this? So I know both of those feelings. So that's why I think it's also something I'm so passionate about. I ended up getting in better shape, and then I went and actually worked for Ocean Rescue Squad in Hilton Head. So open water became like my home. We competed nationally, and I love it. I love open water. I like it more than the pool. And so that's when I started coaching and working with athletes. Like, it was just obviously a passion that continued to grow, and I have so many things to fall back on in terms of my personal experience and then coaching athletes, that it is the biggest barrier, in my opinion, for athletes to get into the sport. Not just to get into the sport thinking, well, I could definitely, we always hear this from our friends and family. You talk about this a lot too. It's like, oh, I could probably make it. I can probably bike like 56 miles. Like I can probably, run, 26 or 13, but it's the swim. I just don't think I can swim. Because it's scary. It's a body of water that is, you don't know what's going on. You can't see. You might have a phobia just about being in open water in general. It is a huge obstacle for people to get over. But once you get past it, or once you work through it, it opens up everything for you, in terms of an athlete, in terms of your experience, in terms of what races you want to go to. And I think it's just a really interesting, like, that it's swimming is the first part of our sport, like the first discipline that we do, in that you're setting yourself up for this wonderful day, like piggybacking off what I almost said Mike Corrali. What Mike Riley said on our Mondays podcast,
Stole
about
that
just how,
from me.
I know, just like how incredible the day is, and that it's this incredible journey you've gone on, and the race is like your graduation, and the race is and it means so much to you, and to walk up to the starting line and feel any kind of fear and anxiety or apprehension that the swim is giving you. Like, I can't imagine starting my day like that. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about swimming, and when I work with athletes and why we work so hard, is that I want you to be excited to get in the water. I want you to be excited to get in and swim your best and go through it, not fearful, not terrified. And so we did yesterday. We had one of our Zoom calls for our athletes. We've been doing one every Wednesday. And yesterday, even though it might seem like odd timing, since many of you can't swim right now in the pool because your gyms are closed, we did a how to not suck at swimming cast. And I went through videos. I talked through things. And so I figured, you know what? What better time to hop back in and do our, what I believe is our is this our sixth installment of How to Not Suck at Swimming, or is there a fifth?
It's at least six, dude.
Yeah, I think it's at least six. We've
I
got
had it
like two or
entitled
three.
six, but I think it
Yeah,
is.
I think it is. I think it has, but That's what I wanted to cover today. I think it's always a great time, and I think now especially, no matter how accomplished you feel in the water, no matter how fast you feel like you are, that swimming is your strength. Most of you are going to start over. You're going to have to say, you know what? I haven't been in the water in 60 days, in 90 days, in 4 months, in 5 months. I've got to find my way back. And how, because many of you are going to be basically starting from scratch, because swimming is one of those things where you can lose your feel for the water so quickly that when you get back in, it's not like riding a bike. It's like starting over. And I feel like that's why I feel like it's so important to kind of retouch on some things and go through some philosophies that I have and just try to simplify swimming in general. So the next time you get in the water, you're not wasting 30 or 40 minutes of your hour and 15 in the water doing mindless kick drills or things that you think are going to get you better and faster, more comfortable in the water. They're just actually wasting your time.
Mm. So, it's amazing to me when I watch your swim analysis like that. Like that's what you did. You did a live swim analysis and showed us a gentleman in the water swimming from the front and the side view, and you were breaking down basically the swim mechanics, the stroke mechanics. And it amazes me how you break things down into the simplest form. And I think that that's a really important point here, is that so many people search, because they are struggling with swimming. It's difficult, but like as you put it, kind of easy to figure out once you kind of take away all the crap. But we search for all these videos and get all these different things in our head. And I love how you break it down into the simplest form, which is basically using the water to get through it. And I want to say that that swim analysis, that live video that you did, we've posted that in the online hub in its entirety. It's like 35 or 40 minutes of you analyzing video and talking about it and answering questions from people as they go. And it really gave a clear picture of how to swim. So that's in the online hub. We currently have a pay what you want going on in there. It's $9, $29, or $49. It takes you through September 30th. And basically you just click on the top right menu item. It says online hub, and there's a little drop down that says preview, and you can click there and sign up. But anyway, long story short here, I just love how you break it down. And I thought maybe that would be a good way to kind of make this a good cast, is basically that reach and entry, the catch, and then the pull along with the strong finish. You want to break that down? You want to keep it in that bucket?
Yeah, I'm gonna do what I usually do. I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as I possibly can. And so, like many of you have, this is again, like this is why swimming is so difficult. There are, of the three sports, it is the most technique driven. Everybody can just walk out the door and run. Everybody on your street, if you all walked out at the same time, you could all step out on the sidewalk and start running. You wouldn't need specific instruction from a coach or a teacher at the Y or whatever. You could just do it. The same goes with riding your bike. You could all hop on your bike and all you have to do is pedal. Fitness comes into play, and that's what makes you go faster, that makes you go longer. Swimming is so technique driven that you can have, and we see this all the time. Like I was joking about it yesterday on our Zoom call. It was like we've all walked up on like the YMC pool deck and we've looked to our right and we see this guy or this girl that is just like ripped. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, this person is going to dust me. Like they're going to embarrass me. I got nothing. I'm just going to wait a little bit. And then they walk into the pool, or they walk into the water and they start swimming, and you think, I might have to save them. I'm not sure I can even start, because they're struggling so much because their technique is so poor, or they're lacking that really, really important swim specific technique. You think, oh my gosh, I might have to save them. And then you look to your left and you see, Johnny, the 78-year-old dude who swims like 5 days a week with this gigantic pot belly, but he's still rocking his Speedo from like 1970. And you're thinking, I'm going to toast this guy. He's old. He's out of shape. I'm going to crush him. And then you get in and you swim a 50, and old Johnny's already done 200. That we've all experienced that in kind of some way, because swimming is so technical, and that's why again it's so difficult to wrap your brain around, because there's so much misinformation or too much information that makes it chaotic and too much to think about. Swimming is difficult because you walk in the pool and you think, all right, I got to do this drill, I got to do the kickboard, I got to do my snorkel, I got to do this, what else in my mesh bag, and then I've got to focus on this entry and this exit, and then my arms got to go here, my hands got to go here, and I got to go early vertical forearm. Oh my gosh, it's only been a 200. My mind wanders about my training workout tonight and what my kids are going to have for lunch, and how, oh my God, I've done 2000. And I just wasted so much time. I have no idea what I even did. So really what you just did was just you cemented very poor technique and used your current fitness. Swimming is very simple. It's incredibly simple. It is about swimming square and staying in your box. And what I mean by that is if you're standing up right now or you're sitting in the chair and you raise your arms up from your side to where your hands are level with your shoulders, that is where you should live. That is all swimming is. That is where you should live. Right there. In that box, and that's your front end of your box. But then as you finish behind you, your hand should be behind your back almost in the exact same spot, straight behind you. All the work you should be doing is to push water straight back, because that is what makes you go forward. You alluded to this a couple minutes ago. Swimming is very simple. Instead of thinking about how can I move gently and softly through the water with this little disruption and make it very calm with no splashing, I don't want to get anybody wet on the pool deck, I want to be smooth and calm and chill. No, you need to think about water as a means of getting to where you want to go. Because grabbing water, pushing it backwards, that is what makes you go forwards, not how gently you can go. So again, that is why your early vertical forearm is so incredibly important. I'm actually, like, if you want to have a good laugh, like, I'm actually standing up in our office at the house right now going through this in my head so I can actually kind of get in the zone. Stand up out of your chair. Get up. If you're not, or you can't, sit in your chair. But this is swimming. It's very simple. Arms down by your side. Raise your arms straight in front of you to where your hands are level with your shoulder. That is how far you want to be able to reach forward. You don't want to enter in the water any earlier than that, and a lot of people do that. And the reason they do that is because you're obsessed with what happens above the water. You're obsessed with what happens that 180 degrees above the water because you've been told, well, in order to swim fast, you really must have a high elbow. If you don't have a high elbow, then you're not going to do very well. So what happens is you come in the water very, very early because your arm out of the water. Again, what you do out of the water means nothing. You're not pushing air backwards. You're not being thrust forward because of the motion of your arm out of the water. The only thing that matters is how far you reach forward and how far you finish back. So if you're obsessed with, you can see it's like Janet Evans or even Katie Ledecky, like they have somewhat like kind of straighter arms. Your arms don't matter out of the water. They can look whatever, as long as you're not being inhibited by the angle of your arm and it affecting your entry. So what usually happens is athletes have this like, oh, I've got to have a high elbow. I've got it out of the water. So they enter super early. Like some athletes enter like right by their head. And then what happens is that you talked about this right before I got on my tangent here, was that I like to break kind of the box that's underneath you of swimming into three different parts, three different boxes. If you had a swim analysis with me, then you can know this is kind of what I use on to kind of give you a visual. But you have the front end of your stroke, which is your first box. So we'll call it like 33% opportunity. And then you've got the middle 33%, which is once you get an early vertical forearm, that catch and that push. And then you have the other 33%, which is the push and the finish. Most athletes, most swimmers, because either they have a poor entry or a very poor exit, have neither of the first, neither of the last. So you're losing 66% of your opportunity by the fact that you either enter the water way too early or you exit the water way too early. So what you want this. So again, if you're standing up straight, you got your arms out in front of you, you want to reach that far in front of you. So your arms need to do whatever they need to do, however they need to look like out of the water, to enable you to reach as far as you can. Because what happens is when you, and again, think of it this way, if you want to throw your hips and your legs and your body up over, then you want to reach far. If you're standing up like with me right now and you throw your arm forward, you can actually feel your heels coming off the ground. If you're laying flat in the water, if you're throwing your arm like that, well, if your butt's coming up and your heels are coming up, guess what else is happening? Your legs are coming up. Therefore, you're sitting higher in the water. Now, if I just wanted to dive deep, right in front of myself, right, very shallow, very close to my head, I'm cheating that front end. Now it's going to be very, very hard to do what I would consider what you hear people call EVF, which is your early vertical forearm. Because once you dive in order to get your arm straight again, you have to kind of surf it and feel your way out forward. And then in order to be able to get into your catch phase, which is again, your forearm is your paddle, which means your shoulders over your elbow, elbow over your wrist, you're catching your catch phase here. So your forearm is facing backwards. In order to do that, when you enter the water really early, is you have to extend and then you have to drop that arm. So by the time you do that, you're just simply doing this. And you can do this next time you get in the pool, or if you have a video of yourself and you can watch it again. Most athletes spend the first 33% of their stroke pushing water down. It's not a terrible thing, but it's obviously not ideal, because what usually happens, and you know this by swimming, is if you're entering the water with your right arm, the first 33% or the first few milliseconds, first second or two that your hand is on the one on the right side, what's your opposite hand doing? The cycle of a stroke is your left side is doing what? It's exiting. Most athletes, most swimmers have a very poor exit. So you're spending the back half of your left and the front part of your right doing nothing. Nothing is propelling you to go forward. You're simply pressing water down with your right, and you're simply pressing water up with your left. You're just staying in the water. Now, do you have any questions so far? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in one thing that I thought about while you were talking about that and yesterday. Um, all this stuff you're talking about, like staying long and staying wide and a strong finish and all that sort of thing. It takes swim, we talk about swim fitness, right? You talk about that a lot, right? And what you were kind of alluding to, or you talked about it on the video, actually. You saw what the gentleman was doing once he started pulling back and how his arm started coming underneath him, and it was kind of, I guess I don't want to really call it lazy, but it's just the easy route, because you talk about how the flow of the water goes underneath you. But my point here is that I think that that's the part that really holds us back, is we kind of get into a groove of doing things the easier way, and it doesn't allow us to build the swim fitness we need. And everything you're talking about needs swim fitness. To stay in that square box, to get out and pull as much water with the most resistance possible, that takes swim fitness. And I wonder if you've seen this a lot, that most people may swim a ton maybe even, but they don't actually build their fitness because they're not using the right technique.
No, that's a great point. Like, I'm glad you touched on that. That's something that I probably should have said at the outset of this, was that it's like, don't be hard on yourself, because swimming, again, it's very new to people and it's very hard to get your mind around. And if even for me, for someone who swam forever, I feel comfortable in the water. Swimming, to me, doing like fast 100s, fast 200s, fast 50s, that leaves me more gassed and more spent than doing anything on the bike and anything on the run. It just wears me out. I mean, you go
Hmm.
anaerobic so quickly. But in terms of your stroke, the reason so many athletes have incorrect strokes is because it's just human nature. Your body, your mind, unless you force it to not, is always going to go with the path of least resistance. So if you're entering the water and you're getting your early catch and you think, gosh, I really can't hold it out wide here. Like, the best example I can give you is to picture the perfect swim stroke, and to get an idea of what it means to swim wide and to swim square and to get an early vertical forearm, is to watch anybody on a surfboard paddle. That is how you should swim. Square, out wide, early vertical forearm. They're not entering. If they enter the water early and did nothing, they wouldn't go anywhere. They reach far out, they grab out wide, they push all their way back, and they have a fast turnover. That's the best way to practice. Is the best kind of image I can give you via a podcast, not seeing you in person. But why so many people struggle with it is because they'll get in this catch phase, they'll stay their hands out wide, like in that first part of the catch phase, and then they're thinking, gosh, I can feel this like pressure on my forearms. I can feel my triceps or my lats starting to fatigue. You know what would feel a lot better is if I would just kind of collapse my arms and bring my elbows in, and then just bring my arms out of the water. That would make it feel so much easier. And you know what? You're right. It will make it feel significantly easier. The reason it's significantly easier because you're no longer working. You're now sliding your arms out by the path of least resistance. But the path of least resistance does this huge major thing when it comes about swimming. If you are not getting resistance or pushing resistance back, that same and equal either resistance or non-resistance is going to be what's propelling you forward. So if you feel no pressure, if you're not grabbing any water, then guess what? You're not getting the other end of it that's pushing you forward. So it's very, very common. Every athlete struggles with it. They either cheat their stroke on the front end, they collapse their arms in midway through, or they cheat their finish because it requires work. And so if you don't practice that over and over and over and over and over again, you're never going to adapt and develop that swim specific strength that's going to allow you to do it. It'd be the same thing as saying, all right, well, I want you to go to the gym. I'm going to give you a basketball. You can shoot however you want to, but you have to stay flat-footed. You can't use your legs. Oh, well, okay, I can do that because it feels easier, right? You're not jumping, you're not bending your knees, you're not doing a jump shot, you're not using your legs. All you're doing is using your arms. And that might work up until what? Maybe the free throw line, maybe a little bit beyond. But if you want to shoot threes or you want to jump over your opponent, do things, you have to use your whole body. Oh, I don't know what that. I'm tired, man. I'm doing jump shots. I'm winded. Like I'm using my whole body. I don't want to do this. I think I'll go back. So while you can do that, you might feel slow. And the biggest thing is that you do this simplistic version of it with the path of least resistance. What it also does is makes you not feel out of breath, which is to you or most swimmers, that's a good thing for you. Good thing in
Mhm.
terms of I don't feel threatened or I don't feel like I'm getting super winded, but all I'm really doing is just going very comfortably, very slow for a long period of time. That's the biggest thing you kind of have to wrap your brain around is that pressure and fatigue means you're working. Like we don't, it's just funny how like swimming is seen so differently than cycling and running. Where if you're on the bike, you're like, oh baby, if you're not if go hard or go home or crush it today or I gotta go, all out. And then swimming, they're like, oh no, hold on a second, no. I just gotta cruise, baby. Like I'm just going smooth and calm and as cool as the other side of the pillow.
Mm.
I don't need to work. I need to be soft. I need to be calm. I need to be cool. Everything else, it's like go harder, go faster, no pain, no gain. And then when people think about swimming, it's like the opposite. It's like cycling and running or hockey, and swimming is seen as like ice skating or ballet. Like you need to be. That's not how it works. Especially if you want to take a peek at mass starts or any kind of start, an age group swim start, in the first 200, 300 meters of a swim. It's strength. It's contact. It's getting your body through the water. If you're not doing that, you're going to get run over.
Mm. Yeah, man, that's such a good point. I think that the thing that gets lost there is that during a race, though, if you work hard in the pool and with that training, and like you're saying, you put that fatigue on yourself and that you work with pressure in the water, then in the race, it will feel easier if you're backing it down. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like you have to gun it all the time, like you're running up a hill or something like that. But hill training and running makes running flat easier. It's sort of that same concept. And I wanted to point that out because I think a lot of us struggle. I'm a intermediate swimmer at best. I have my moments at times, and I think when I have my moments is when I'm swimming a lot and I'm working it, and it does make it easier because it just changes your zone or something. You have what used to be hard and maybe a zone 3 swim action is now a zone 2, so you can go fast. And again, it's not like you always talk about like the trade-off of you know really going after it in a race and maybe how that could save you a couple minutes versus staying under control, getting a full stroke, being relaxed, and being strong versus, you know, burning your aerobic system out by like just being gassed, because you know swimming can do that easily, and it's such a fine line. And I love when you talk about that fine line and how to be efficient and just be strong enough to pull that water where it doesn't gas you.
You know, swimming is like one of the three, in my opinion, that most athletes will say, I don't know, man, I've only got one gear. When you say easy and when you say fast, I've got the same. And the reason, and it's the same thing when, listen, it's the exact same thing that happens when someone starts out running. And to ask them to go run a mile, there is no slow and there is no fast. There is just completing it, because they're, we use the cake analogy and putting the icing on top. And we usually talk about that in terms of adding all three of the sports together in terms of training load and getting ready for a race. But the thing is that each individual sport, based on your experience, based on the amount of ability that you have, based on your focus and your strengths and weaknesses, each individual sport has its own mini cake. You've got your running cake, you got your bike cake, you got your swim cake. Most athletes, when they start very, very fresh, very new, they have so little aerobic endurance that they barely have the bottom thin layer of the cake. So there can't be any icing. And the thing is like once you build your cake up, and we know this by, if you've been running for a long time or you've been cycling for a long time, you've got like 4, 5, 6 different gears. You've got your super easy recovery gear. Like this is like a joke. Like I don't even know why I'm doing this. Then you've got like your zone 2, which is like, this is my all day pace, like your coffee shop ride, doing it with my buddies, going a long ride, going a long run. You got your zone 3, which is like, all right, like the people are competitive. It's like open half marathon or a very spirited group ride. Then you got all outs, and you got aerobic. Then you got the efforts I can hold for 2 minutes, the efforts I can handle for just 30 seconds. Like you have that wide range of a fitness cake on running and in cycling. But you ask somebody to do that in swimming, they're going to cruise at like a 2 minute pace for their easy, and then their fast is going to be like a 157, because their cake is so thin. It's just the truth. You know this. Like I think
I
you've probably
know.
been there. Like you're living it. And so many people are like, oh, I don't even know why you're giving me like zone 2, zone 3, and zone 4. But that's the thing, is like if you don't work your swim cake to be so big and so robust, then you're going to be in one of two categories. You're going to enter the water, and the only thing you can think about is, I'm going to swim slow, and I'm going to be fearful. Because if I go any faster, I won't be able to breathe. Or you're going to hop in the water, and you're going to be hypoxic from the get-go. Like I think we all see these swimmers, and like one of the best ways to kind of really grasp the effort levels or the lack of effort levels in terms of speed and ability is to simply stand at the T1 or at the swim exit. You see so many different types of people getting out of the water. It's so interesting to watch, like the professionals and the higher end age groupers coming out of the water, the really accomplished swimmers, or some of the relay swimmers especially. They get out of the water, and they barely look wet, right? Their face is perfectly fine. They look totally normal. They're like, I am running. I can't wait to get to my bike. Like that was basically a warm up, right? A steady, controlled, purposeful warm up. Then on the totally other end of the spectrum, you've got athletes getting out of the water that look like they just came out of the birth canal. Their face is like, their face is totally red. Their eyes are bloodshot. They're taking their swim cap off, and you're like, oh my God, like, is this person going to make it? They're stumbling left and right. They've basically gone anaerobic for 45, 50 minutes, an hour and a half, you know, that much effort. And then again, that's the same person who's going to be like, I don't know, man. My bike today was just not what I thought it was going to be. Like I'm used to doing like 20 miles an hour on all my group rides, but today like I just couldn't make it work. And you're like, okay, well, in all your group rides, do you swim basically all out for an hour and a half with no nutrition and barely breathing? Oh, no, you didn't. Okay, well, that might be part of the reason. But that's what happens. Like you can see it very visibly in athletes. And so in order to give yourself those extra levels, those extra gears, those extra speeds, You have to practice that. Practice different speeds, 25s, 50s, 100s. We do these all the time. But what you also have to do is swim enough to make it. You can't walk in the kitchen once a week or once every other week and expect to learn how to make a good cake. You got to be in your swim kitchen 3 times a week, 4 times a week, working hard. And when I say working hard, I don't mean showing up to the pool at 8 o'clock, walking very relaxed to the swim deck, spending 5 minutes doing your swim stretches, and then clapping your back like Michael Phelps, like you're about to rip it in the pool, and then you hop in, and then you're like, I don't know, man, like that lane's not my favorite. It's got the ladder on the side. I really can't swim in there. And then look, Johnny's in there too. I'm gonna wait for this one. 8, 10 rolls around. You get in. You're like, all right, let's see, warm up today. All right, 50 with fins. Got it. Take my fins off. All right, 50 with pull buoy. Pull buoy on. It's my 50. I'm back. All right. Rest for a minute. Hey, what's up, Sally? How you doing? Yeah, man. I'm training for Muncie 70.3. Train's going pretty good. I'm just using it as a training race. It's kind of a B race, but we'll kind of see what happens. I'm feeling good. How are you doing? Okay, 8:30 rolls around. All right, now I got to do some kicking on my side. 25 on my side, 25 on my side. All right, got it. Done. Whew. All right, now I got to get my snorkel out. My favorite. Got to get my snorkel out because we all know that snorkels are crucial in triathlon swimming because we sight underwater and we breathe underwater. So we got to practice with our snorkel. Looking underwater with our snorkel. Next thing you know, it's like 8:40 and you've done like a 400. Oh my God, we forgot our kickboard. All right, got to get my kickboard out. All right, now I got to start getting my kickboard. And for most triathletes, your kick is so poor. I hate to break it to you, but your kick is so poor. And it's in fact using up so much blood and oxygen, it's not just a waste of time and a waste of energy, but it very well could be making you basically go backwards and slowing you down. For most of you, because I've seen it, it takes you like a minute to do a 25 of kicking. But I got in my kick set in. Next thing you know, you've done 1,000. What have you even done? What have you done? You've done nothing. You've wasted an hour. If you want to get to work and you want to be a better swimmer, get in and get to work. You don't need a 2,000 warm up or an 800 warm up. Sometimes we'll do sets and I'll get texts or emails or messaging training peaks from athletes like, hey coach, I think you forgot the warm up here. And when they mean that, they mean like I don't give them like a 200 before we get into the meat of the work. Like you just don't have that much time. You got to drive to the pool. You got to get dressed. You got to find your favorite locker. You got to walk out to the pool deck. You got to find your spot. You got to get your stuff on. You got to debate with yourself and negotiate 8 times. I don't know, man. That hot tub looks really toasty today. I probably could just, do a little stretch session and do a little recovery soak, as I like to call it, and skip my swim today. Like you have to get in and get to work. So sometimes I might just have people get in and go right into the main set. 40 25s, get to work, all out, because again, if you don't do these feelings in practice, you're not going to be able to repeat them and be comfortable with them in the race. You have to swim hard to be able to work and swim hard comfortably. That's also what gives you the wide range of a cake to where you can have these zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 swims. When you get in the water to swim, you should think, I want this swim to be solid and uneventful. That's how you should feel when you get in the water to swim. I'm in control, and in fact, I'm not only in control, I'm looking forward to the swim. Because as I stand in my swim, and I look to my right and I see Billy, and I look to my left and I see Sally, their goggles are on top of their head, and they are scared shitless. I am terrified. What am I going to do? I don't know if I'm going to make it. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make the cutoff. I know it's not wetsuit legal, but I'm definitely wearing my wetsuit today because I've got to have it as my security blanket, because if I don't have it, I'm definitely going to DNF, and that would be terrible. And you're looking all around, you're seeing fear and apprehension and anxiety and the unknown. And what you're thinking is, dude, I'm so pumped for this. The psychological advantage you already have, not to mention just the fitness that you're going to have gained by swimming hard and swimming often and doing it the right way, but the emotional and mental edge you're going to have over not your competitors, because most of us aren't competing for a podium spot. Right? There might be 5 podium spots in a sea of 400 age groupers. But the competitor that you're going against is that past version of you. That version of you that couldn't swim. That version of you that was terrified of the water. That version of you who only had one speed a few years ago, or maybe even a few months ago. That's who you're feeling confident about. But to stand in that line and to walk down to the water and to be excited to jump in because that the first time your toe hits the top of the surface, game is on. And you love it. You're embracing it. You can't wait versus I'm going to get on the back of the line because that's just going to delay the amount of time I'm going to have to be afraid and be fearful. And that's, again, like why people don't work hard in the pool or are afraid to work hard in the pool. I get it because you do get so anaerobic, but you have the safety net you have nowhere else. You're only going 25 yards in one direction before you can hold on to a wall or stand up belly button deep. Like, how good do you have it? That's as good as it gets. You don't run in a 25 yard circle or get all your runs on a track, or it's the same kind of safety net you have when you're on the bike trainer. Like, I can go all out, I can bonk, and you know what? That's fine because I can run to the bathroom 6 feet away, or I can run down to the kitchen and call it a day. Like, you have those opportunities in the swimming pool, in your lap pool, 25 meters, 25 yards, whatever it is, and you don't use it. And then you expect to be dumped into this huge body of water with 3,000 strangers getting ready to just explode on the scene and do your best and rip it and show what you've accomplished. And you've been just going through the motions and skipping the swims because it doesn't matter. It's a very short time, very short part of the race. But I'm telling you, like, and we've talked before, like fitness and swimming and triathlon especially, it is so much a domino effect that why would you want to start your day, the first hour, the first 2 hours, not just with the mental and emotional block or the mental emotional fear or anxiety that you're starting the race like that, but the amount of effort and energy expenditure you have to take just to get through the thing you already said, that amount of energy to get through the shortest leg of the day. Think about it. I know it might seem like a moot point, but I'm telling you, especially as we're moving back into where many people in the next 21 to 30 days are going to have access to a pool or access to open water. Like, now is the time to think, all right, I'm no longer going to go to the pool. I'm just going to do, like, a 2K straight, like a 2K swim, just super chill. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to get in, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to simplify my stroke, I'm going to figure out exactly what I need to do so I can just enter the water, exit the water, grab as much as I can, boom, done. Let's call it a day.
Mm. Woo! All right.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's good. Hey, that was a perfect. It's weird how we always are kind of on the same page, but that was kind of the perfect segue into what I was thinking about asking you next, which is, all right, so soon we're all going to be back to the pool, hopefully soon.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us have not swam in quite a while, and we're all going to be, more or less, I mean, have that beginner feel about us because we haven't been swimming. We don't have that swim fitness build up or everything. But so have you been calculating strategies for how to send your athletes back to the pool and strategies for how you want them to go about it when they start? And then can you riff on that a little bit as far as your thought process, as in, okay, nobody's been swimming for a couple months and here we're getting back in the water. Do you go balls out, or you kind of?
No. Well, I mean, first off, it's a great question, and I think that's where many athletes are going to find themselves struggling. Like, okay, and it's magnified, I think, in swimming because people feel like it can be the most unsafe. It's the part of the it's the discipline of the three where Ironman and other big races have changed for safety issues, for safety reasons, to make things more comfortable and more safe and make things go more fluid. And now you're going to have so many different races, that, I mean, let's just be honest, like, we have no idea when they're going to happen. But the thing is that, like, you're going to be hanging out, in your living room with your kids. You haven't swam in, 3 months. You're like, this is no good. And then also it's like, oh, your Ironman bat phone goes off, and they're like, all right, you got to race in 30 days. See ya. And you're like, oh my God, like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to get ready? What am I going to do? How am I going to make it? And you're going to have scenarios where you got races like Ironman Louisville, Ironman Chattanooga, that have like straight downstream swims. Louisville has a little bit of an upstream, but things like that's like, okay, you have that ballpark. Then you're going to have the other ballpark with things like maybe Lake Placid if that happens, or Ironman Wisconsin, or these big open bodies of water where you're like, wait, like I get no free pass, I get no freebie. So I think you really need to determine, like, is this I really got to get after it, because the training for both is going to be dramatically different. So training for Ironman Chattanooga or Ironman Louisville, or a really easy downstream swimmer like Augusta 70.3, or races like that, or North Carolina 7.3, those really downstream, not easy swims, very easy, very beginner friendly. The time you're going to need for that in the specific workouts you would do are totally different than the sessions you would need to do for something like Ironman Wisconsin, where there is no current. It's a gigantic body of water. It's one gigantic loop. You can't make any mistakes. You need to sight, and you got to do it well. That training is going to be different. Then it's also like, all right, what kind of time am I looking at? Like, do I have 30 days? Do I got 45 days? Do I got 90 days? So it's going to look very, very different. But what you have, and this is kind of what I've told our athletes too. That's why we're running and cycling so much right now. Why I'm not anti, you know, trying to work on your swim strength with stretch cords or hopping in on a tethered. The tether thing I don't get, because you're being pulled down at the waist and it really affects your mechanics. But one of the biggest things is that you're going to want to allocate as much time as you can to the swim when you get it back. Because if you're cycling right now and you're running right now, but you're also trying to waste 4 hours of your week getting in 45 minutes of swim work with cords or strength stuff, then you're missing an opportunity. Because when push comes to shove, when the garage doors goes up and races are on, you need to be ready. Not just to be ready to get going swimming, but you need to have allocated the time and built up the run base and the bike base to where I don't have to worry about getting in more biking and more running. I have allowed myself the time over the past few months with these restrictions to where I've been biking 4 times a week. I've been running 5, 6, 7 times a week. I got that. So I'm not going to feel bad, or I'm not going to feel worried and anxious that I'm missing out on those, because when I got to go to the pool 4 times a week, you need to work hard and you need to work on your upper body. That is what I would say. And the first time you hop in the pool, don't just hop in the pool and see how far you can swim. Do 25s, 25 and 50s. That's where our athletes are going to live, and they live there anyway. But they're gonna become reaccustomed to that life is 25s and 50s. Because it's a great way to work your anaerobic strength and your anaerobic uh, energy system. But a 25 is also, for you being out of the water so long of a period of time, what it's also going to do, you can hold form for a 25. You can hold form for a 25. Most athletes can hold it for a 50 or a 100. The majority of athletes, especially coming off a gigantic break, are not going to be able to hold form for a 500 or 1,000. They're just going to be going the same speed with terrible form. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. Work hard, work the anaerobic base you don't have. It's going to actually help you build your aerobic base, and then give your body the time and the opportunity to focus on short bouts of perfecting it. Like when people do run drills or bike drills, they don't ask you to do them for 2 or 3 miles. They're like, all right, 20 seconds here, 30 seconds here, start with a few strides, done. They don't ask, all right, I need you to perfect this by doing it for 10 minutes straight. No, because your body can't do that. It's lost the ability to do that, or you forgot how to do it. You should need to get back in the water. So you should live in 25s and 50s, in my opinion. Like you should live in 25s and 50s. And if you can do that, and then move on and up to 100s once you feel like you can reduce rest and get back to a point to where you're very comfortable with things and you can actually hold form. Like do that. But that's where I would live as we have athletes beginning to transition back into swimming, is don't just see how far you can swim, because I want to see how much fitness I've lost. You lost some, probably. You haven't lost as much as you think, right? As long as you've been active, you've been running and cycling, your heart and your lungs are still going to work. The swim will become more efficient. It's just that swim specific strength we need to shore up and work on. So live in the 25s, live in the 50s, and occasionally visit the 100s and 200s.
Mm, that sounds good, dude.
I always feel like I need to drink like an electrolyte carb drink when I talk about swimming because I like barely breathe and I like go on these like gigantic tangents and I feel like slightly gassed.
Well,
My rant and tangent cake is quite small apparently. I'm not even ready to put the icing on it. I need to kind of go back into base work.
well, it's contagious, man. I think it pumps me up. I know that it probably pumps other people up because it's sort of that puzzle that we all want to solve, and sometimes you just need to hear things in a different way or the same kind of way, twisted a little bit, and hopefully they'll kick in. But I just on the way out, because I want to round this back into what you were saying earlier about the reach and the catch and all that kind of stuff. And just as a mental picture, maybe for people to think about when they get back in the water, because as you say, getting a feel for the water and getting a good catch on it and holding it and pulling it back and pushing it is so huge. I just wanted to point out something that you mentioned it, and I think about it all the time when I'm swimming. And usually in the, like a lot of times there's just black lines, but sometimes those pools have, like little check tile at the bottom
Oh
that
yeah.
make up the line or whatever. And because I always think about like the my dead spots. So a lot of times I'll put my head down for multiple strokes and kind of try to analyze and see if I'm slowing down, because it's hard to tell if you don't have a gauge like that, like some kind
hmm
of ruler. But for me, it's one of the ways that I sort of try to analyze, and it's not necessarily easy to do, and I can't always figure it out. And a lot of times when keep your head down, you don't probably have as much of a dead spot, because
hmm
the breath and the whole operation kind of is part of the problem, or challenge. So I just want to kind of reiterate, I guess, the importance of dead spots and what that means, because you were talking about it in that analysis the other day about how there was a huge part of his stroke where he was doing nothing to move forward. And you I mean, again, it's sort of like breaking it down into the simplest form. If you're not doing anything and you're stalling in the water, you're going to be slow. So it's really about finding
Yeah.
the maximum efficiency and actually working on the right side, and then before your right side gives out the work or stops working, your left side has to be working. So it's like the timing of it and all that sort of thing. I don't know if that's too much to get into right now, but just
No,
maybe a
it's
brief.
it. Yeah, I mean, no, it's a great point, and I think one of the biggest like mis confusing points or ways we've fooled ourselves into thinking that we're swimming is that just because your arm is in the water doesn't mean it's doing anything good. And I know that might sound harsh, but that's just the truth. Just because your arm is in the water, your hand is in the water, and it's that arm's turn within the cycle of swimming and your cadence and the turnover, just because it's underneath the water doesn't mean it's doing anything. If you're not using it to push and grab water backwards from the beginning of your catch all the way through and finishing as far back as you possibly can, the arm is just in the water. And that's what's like and it's so funny, like every single time, almost every time, and I've done hundreds, maybe even thousands swim analysis, and almost every single time, 9 times out of 100, the first thing an athlete says when they just send me the video is, "I look nothing like I thought I did." Like we always think we look when we're and swimming is that thing. Like it's really really hard to like get a grasp of where your body is in space, much less in water. With proprioception and feel, like some of it's taken away. Like it's just that's why I feel for the water is so important. And they look at it and they think, oh my gosh, like, yeah, and you get this comment, you get this on Facebook threads or whatever when people are so disgusted and frustrated with their lack of improvement. It's that they are, and I get it. I 100% get it. And that's again like why I'm so happy. Well, I'm not happy, but yeah, I guess so. But why I love talking about swimming and working with swimmers is that it because you can work so and go nowhere. You can work so hard and get so anaerobic. You can kick your legs so hard. You can flail your arms in a windmill, and you can be basically sinking, gasping for air, swimming a 2:30. That is so frustrating and can be so, not just physically, but so mentally and emotionally debilitating in terms of what's the point? How am I even going to get better? I've got to work on, let's see, I got to get in the water. I got to work on my reach. I got to work on early vertical forearm. I got to work on, dragging my hand up here and doing this over here. I got to worry about, I got to worry about body positioning. Where are my hips? Am I supposed to roll? Am I not supposed to roll? Where's my supposed to be? Shoulder drive or hip drive? Oh my God, I got to breathe. I breathe into the right and I'm breathing to the left. No, I'm not going to breathe. And then, oh my gosh, my kick. Am I kicking right? Am I kicking to the left? Am I kicking too much? It's so much overload. And you're like, I've got to think about all this stuff. And I've got to work so hard to go nowhere. And that's why people give up. That's why people are so frustrated and they get emotional. They're like, I'm fed up. I can't do it. I need help or I'm going to quit. And if you don't take the time, we do. It's just interesting that I don't know how swimming got this bad rap is and every other of the sports like running and cycling, everyone looks for the biggest advantage. And a lot of times it's because they can use a power mirror, they can buy these special shoes to wear from Nike on the run, or they can buy an aero helmet, or buy a $20,000 bike, or do these on that. It's buying gear, it's being a part of that doesn't require as much work. Swimming, it's like the rawest form of looking at your athletic flaws in triathlon because it's just there. You can't hide it. And the technique and the strength is what's preventing you from being fast. But that's also why it's just not that fun for people because you have to work really hard. You have to identify all the areas that you don't have or that you're not, efficient in and then fix them. But that's also why swimming is so allows you these opportunities to see so much improvement. You have to even improve fitness. We've had people doing some analysis and they've dropped 10, 15, 30 seconds off 100 in weeks and months, not by increased fitness, but just by becoming more efficient. That's why it's so great because you have that much more to overcome. That's why you see people exiting the water in this emotional state of I can't believe I just did that. Because you're overcoming so much. You're overcoming fear. You're overcoming the fact that you didn't take up swimming till you were 40. You're overcoming so many things. That's again the greatest things in our lives are the most challenging. Have the most opportunity for growth. It's the most challenging and hardest things. We've had to work so hard at it every single day, 4 or 5 times a week. We got to keep at it. Even when we think we've plateaued, we got to keep going. We can't rest on our laurels. We can't just think, it's gonna be okay. We got to keep working on it, and we can't just neglect it once we just got to keep working. And then when it all comes together and it's all worthwhile, and I figured out how to fix my stroke and I become more efficient. Now this is what I'm talking about. That's when the fun starts to happen. That's when things become so different because you've gone through that process. But again, that's why it's such a deterrent for most people. It's something they neglect because as with all training, as with diets, as with everything, people want it overnight. I'm getting a little bit faster, but I want it. Well, it's only been a couple days. Well, I want it. I want to get faster right now. So you know what? I think I'm going to drop $800 on a brand new Roku wetsuit that I'm going to wear 3 times a year. That's going to do it for me. I'm going to wear that. And that's totally what I'm going to do. That's you just have to work at it, and you have to figure out what your stroke is doing in the water in order to correct it. Which is the other huge issue that most athletes have is they get in the water and they have literally no idea what they're doing. Their only goal is to swim for a duration of time or to just get a specific distance in. They don't know what to focus on. They don't know what to try to perfect. They don't know what the focus is. They don't know what a main set looks like. They just kind of get in and piddle around in the water. That's again why you're not improved. But there's so many ways to improve with something. That's why I love it so much. Is there's so much opportunity to where a light bulb can go off, and we see it every year at camp, at all our camps. We see it at our swim camps. We see it we see it in training peaks and swim analysis. It's just boom, the light bulb goes off, and you're all of a sudden this different swimmer, and that's why it's awesome. That's why it can be magic.
It is magic.
It's magic.
All right, buddy.
Yeah, my heart rate went to zone 3 on that one. So I will do a cool down. But hey, I appreciate it. If you tune in today and you're thinking, hey, I hate to swim, this is a waste of time, hey, keep at it. I know it's the most frustrating part for most people unless you kind of walked into it as an accomplished swimmer. We've all got those sports of the three that are super difficult for us. That we all have that, that unicorn, if you will. That's like, I just gotta find it. Like I'm working so hard, but I'm gonna get it. That's also why we love this sport, is because it's never perfected. You're always working, and it's all a big puzzle. And so keep at it. Mike and I always appreciate our listeners. We appreciate you tuning in, giving us your time. If you like what you've heard and you want to give us some feedback, or you've been listening for a long time and haven't taken the time, please hop on into iTunes, give us a review. It doesn't really do much for us in terms of sponsors and ads, but it helps other people in our community find us. We're all about expanding our community, promoting togetherness, keeping people happy and healthy. It invites and gets more people into our Facebook community, which again is it's on Facebook, Crushing Iron Group. Search that, answer a quick question, we'll let you in. That's what we're about, is just expanding our community with awesome people and helping the sport grow. So if you do that, take your time, give us a review. But yeah, that's all I got today.
All right. If you want to see a lot of what he's been talking about in this podcast in action, make sure to check out the online hub, where we've posted a complete live swim analysis video where he's showing you exactly what he's talking about with telestrator techniques of
Yeah, it is. Like I feel
some of
like
the finest analysts.
Yeah,
You're pretty good at that, by the way. I
I've
got to
been
give you a
doing it
shout out.
for a while, man. But hey, there's technically 3 analysis in there. There's the one that I did, the top and the bottom. There's one at the very, very end that I did of myself and another athlete. But it's swimming is a visual thing. You got to see it. That's why it's hard to talk about on a podcast, which I think is why most people don't. But you got to talk about it, you got to hear it, you got to be a part of it, and then it's super helpful to see it. And then yeah, so log on and check out the online hub. And then if you have any other questions about camps, community, and coaching, you can hop on the website, c26triathlon.com, and we'll see you bright and early ish on Monday.
All right, buddy. That sounds great, man. Thanks
All right,
thanks
dude.
again.
Always.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Have a good weekend, man.